Welcome or welcome back to Pewdiepie. I'm Zui and I hope you enjoyed today's video. But before we get right into it, I'm obligated to remind you to click either the like or dislike button, commenting something down below, and of course sharing the video so more people can see and enjoy it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video.
Hell was a much nicer place than you had expected. In fact, it was much like living in your neighborhood. And considering that it was hell, that said more about your old neighborhood rather than hell itself. This was your first year in the pits below, and somehow you managed nothing, really. You were cursed with being a tiny demoness. Your magical and physical abilities weren't really quite up to snuff. So all you could do was bottom feed. And bottom feed you did. In your first year you had taken up various ways to try and survive. One of which was polishing shoes and hoofs in a semi-safe area in one of Sir Pentius's territories. Of course you had never met the elusive Snake Man, but everyone living here was too busy bullying his egg minions for stress relief to inconvenience you or anyone else. It was an ironic piece, which actually was the reason Sir Pentius was so powerful in the first place. Sinners outright wanted to live in its territories and would defend it. Not with their lives, but they would offer at least some resistance. There we go, sir. You gave the demon in front of you a cheerful smile as you finished up the last few wipes on his massive hoof. A monstrosity, but also a regular customer. The guy was a mountain of muscles, but he had a soft spot for you, it seemed. Or maybe he was just a creep, and wanted you in ways you didn't want to dare think of. But then again, you also didn't care. He gave you a toothy grin.
Little one,
He began.
this is your first year, right?
You nodded.
Well, do you know what the cleansing is then?
I heard stories that it happens once a year, but no one told me when. The giant chuckled.
Yes, tonight.
A cold shower washed over you.
You've been doing a very good job with my feet, so I thought I should tell you.
Your eyes widened in fear as you looked at the ground. Shouldn't you barricade yourself then, sir? He patted you on your head roughly.
Try my luck this year and try to take one of them out.
Damn it. You're just starting to get used to living in a cardboard box and scavenging the areas. Since there was no threat of dying, at least not for long, it felt more like a survival challenge rather than an actual danger. The demon stomped away and you looked after him for what seemed like hours. Maybe you should have begged him to protect you. Of course, only now you had realized how little customers you had gotten today, and how little activity was on the streets. You were exposed. You wanted to scream and cry for help, but you knew this wouldn't happen. So you just sunk down, pressed against the wall of the bridge, where you had your little polishing station prepped up. You whimpered. What should you do? It was then suddenly you heard steps approaching you from the other side of the bridge. The shadow of it covering the demon, with the exception of his big, glowing red eyes. The shape was humming an old tune, something that was sounding eerily similar to something your grandpa listened to when you were just a little child. A slight static noise was quietly emitting from him. He stopped next to your stand and read the sign.
Ah, now just what I was looking for,
he exclaimed. The demon tilted his head to look at you. Are you the little girl offering these fabulous shoe polishings? You gave an intimidated nod.
Now that is quite alright, darling.
Rather elegantly, he put his foot on the small crate you were using as your workstation.
Do your job, then.
But, sir, the angels... He snapped with his right hand and you went quiet.
Do I look like I care about this popular pop of cleansing and angels? I am here to get my shoes nice and clean before I go and enjoy the show.
The way he talked about impending doom made it seem like a happy occasion for him.
Besides, you will probably end up dead in the gutter, so I don't have to worry about paying you.
He chuckled. You frowned.
Smile, my dear. You never fully dress without one. And I don't deal with naked perverts.
Somehow you managed to push a smile through your anxiety, which seemed to make him very happy.
That is great, my dear. Now, on you go.
Simply nodded and grabbed the cleanest rag you owned. Hidden behind a hole in the bridge wall, you had a few bottles of clean water, your most prized possessions, and your most important tool for your trade. After thoroughly dampening the cloth, you carefully began to clean the demon's shoes. They were covered in dried blood, but other than that, pretty much pristine.
I had put myself on a little assignment today, my dear. Didn't realize they'd bleed so much.
You looked up into his face for a moment with your anxious smile. Don't worry, sir. I get that a lot. We'll just take a minute. The imposing demon checked a watch he was carrying on a small chain around his neck.
Well, we do have a few more minutes, so you can take your time.
After the shoe was squeaky clean, you went to grab another somewhat clean rag. One of the few demon's abilities you did have was creating an oily substance inside the palm of your hand. While it was easily flammable, it also made for a very good shoe polishing cream. You carefully worked the oil into the demon's shoe, only now noticing how delicate and expensive these actually looked. After you were done, you were surprised at yourself. You managed to finish this so quickly and satisfying despite your current predicament. The demon skeptically inspected his shoe, and then said, impressed,
My dear, I think you did a fabulous job.
Thank you, sir. Hearing him compliment you gave you a weird, warm feeling deep in your gut. And for a second you forgot that you were about to die in an invasion of angels. And that's when he laughed.
That's what I've been talking about. That smile right there. If I had a heart, it surely would be warming up right now.
You blushed.
Now, it would be a shame to see such a talented young lady be sliced open by the claw of one of these divine freaks.
He bowed before you and reached his hand out.
A terrible flaw of mine is that I absolutely hate owing something to someone. And as I already said, I don't intend on paying you with money. So...
For a moment the glow in his eyes intensified.
Would you like to make a deal with me then?
You tried not to be disrespectful, but one thing you were warned of by pretty much anyone was to never make a deal with a deal maker. I don't want to, insult you, sir, but what deal? He chuckled and summoned a rather long piece of paper. And as if on cue, this was the moment multiple loud explosions went out of around you.
If I were you, I would read that quickly.
Panic filled your heart and mind, as tears began to wallow in your eyes. The explosions were coming closer. So were screams and echoes. Okay, it's a deal. Just get me out of here, please! You shouted. He laughed and wrapped an arm around your waist.
A wise choice, really.
And within the blink of an eye, you were on top of one of Hell's many skyscrapers. You looked around, disorientated, and feeling vomit coming up your throat. But luckily, you managed to keep it in.
First time is always the roughest, my dear. Just like the first time is always free.
These words were strangely comforting you. Then he snapped his fingers, covering the entire rooftop in a strange black mist.
This shall suffice. Well, at least it worked last year.
The demon said while walking to the edge of the roof.
Come, let's enjoy this spectacle, my dear.
With a meek whimper, you crawled over to him and peeked over the chest-high railing the rooftop had. Below you, large black creatures teared apart an armored vehicle. The demon inside probably thought he'd survive in it and then use it to assert dominance over the ruined city.
Oh, how much I enjoy this massacre. There aren't many things that entertain me these days. Eternity is just so boring. What do you think, darling?
He gave you a questioning look. I don't have much for violence. At least as of yet. Truthfully, the reason I'm here, well... in life, you weren't the nicest person. But the one moment you realized you were going to hell was when... I'm here because after my grandfather's death, I sold all his heirlooms for a quick buck. Even though he said they are priceless in meaning. Plus, I enjoyed one too many drinks.
Greed is a beautiful sin, darling. One of my favorites, in fact.
He chuckled.
The name is Alastor, by the way. Nice to make your acquaintance. And once this is over, I know exactly where you would fit in.
His smile turned into pure smugness.
How do you feel about hotels?